Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
Faith isn't a wish, it's a weapon. The world taught you to beg for what you should claim, to wait patiently while lesser minds walk boldly into rooms built for you. You call it humility, but it's fear dressed in robes. When you believe it's already yours, your movements change, not with arrogance, but with inevitability. You stop asking, you stop hoping, you begin aligning, your walk sharpens, your decisions refine, not because you see the prize, but because you've already buried it in your identity, and once it's buried there, reality becomes the echo. There is a physics to belief. The body obeys what the mind submits to. You think your problem is effort. It's not. It's orientation. The man who believes the result is his moves differently. He doesn't test the water. He walks through fire. He doesn't look for permission. He scans for openings. You can fake hard work. You can mimic rituals, but you cannot fake certainty. It pulses through your voice. It shapes your gaze. The room knows. The competition feels it. The world adjusts for it. Because belief, real belief, distorts probability. Most never get what they want because they still think it belongs to someone else. They worship talent. They envy access. They elevate bloodlines and algorithms while ignoring the one truth that bends the entire game. You receive what you refuse to live without. The man who treats his vision like oxygen never goes unanswered. The universe may test him, delay him, break him, but it cannot ignore him. Why? Because belief is louder than need. Don't manifest, declare. Don't visualize, embody. Close your eyes and stop seeing the outcome. Feel the cost paid in full. Feel the weight of the win before it arrives. That's where it begins. Most people stare at the mirror waiting to be convinced, but when you believe it's already yours, you stare at your reflection like a soldier preparing for war. You don't need affirmation, you need action. You don't seek energy, you become it, and that shift, it terrifies the average mind. Belief changes your threshold for pain. Suddenly, struggle doesn't feel like resistance, it feels like calibration. You stop seeing delays as denial and start seeing them as design. You start treating setbacks as training. The man who knows it's his doesn't flinch when he's knocked down. He doesn't question the process. He just recalculates, because his identity is already wrapped around the end result. The only thing time can do is catch up. The masses quit, not because they lack talent, but because they lack ownership. They are tourists in their own potential, passing through, taking pictures. But the man who believes it's already his, he builds a home there. He plants flags. He sculpts the future in his name. And when the world says, "Who gave you this right?" he answers with silence. Because lions don't respond to sheep. You have to stop negotiating with reality. Reality is slow, sluggish, blind. It does not give until it's forced to acknowledge identity. The man who achieves doesn't beg, he behaves. He walks like the result has been issued and the world just hasn't opened the envelope yet. He works like the reward has already been wired to his name. Not because he's delusional, but because he knows that creation follows conviction always. Let the doubters talk. Let them question your pace, your process, your posture. Let them mock what they can't feel, because while they think you're chasing dreams, you're retrieving assets. While they wait for signs, you're sending signals. And while they bow at the altar of probability, you are bending it, one decision at a time. There will be days where results are nowhere in sight. Days where logic whispers, "You're a fool." Days where the silence feels like mockery. But this is where belief separates the pilgrims from the conquerors. You stare deeper. You grip harder. You stop asking what's fair. You start asking what's next. Because you didn't come this far to flirt with your future. You came to marry it. Belief is not a feeling. It's a decision that trains the nervous system. Most don't realize how deep it goes. You think you act based on discipline. But the body doesn't respond to to-do lists. It obeys identity. And identity is shaped by belief. The moment you believe you're the type to win, your mind stops debating. Resistance fades. Doubt withers. Tasks transform from should I to of course. This is not mental trickery, it's neurobiology. The brain doesn't chase what's possible. It follows what you've already claimed as inevitable. Research shows it plainly. Those who believe they will succeed practice longer, return faster after failure, and adjust quicker when they fall. They don't wait to feel ready, they act because readiness is already embedded in their posture. That's the distinction. Belief isn't preparation, it is readiness. And readiness breeds movement. Not reckless movement, but targeted, relentless motion toward an outcome already sealed by identity. What you believe, you repeat. What you doubt, you avoid. And over time, avoidance becomes personality. That's how mediocrity is born. Not from laziness, but from misaligned belief systems. Watch how someone breathes when they walk toward their goal. Shallow, rushed, anxious. That's borrowed vision. That's someone wearing a dream that doesn't fit. Now watch the one who knows it's theirs. Shoulders low, eyes calm, every movement efficient, not because they're cocky, but because their behavior is being driven by a self-pedestal, written in ink, not pencil. They're not chasing results, they're acting out a role that has already been cast. Belief upgrades how you suffer. When you don't believe, pain feels pointless. Every setback is a referendum on your worth. Every failure feels fatal. But when you believe it's already yours, pain turns instructional. You don't cry over the weight. You listen to it, you study it, because you know every ounce of discomfort is a memo from the future, showing you what must sharpen. You stop asking why it hurts. You start asking, where is this leading me? Self-belief is the author of all your routines. If you see yourself as average, you'll sabotage success the moment it feels too real. You'll ruin relationships, quit too soon, waste opportunity, not because you don't want it, but because you don't see it as yours. The subconscious is loyal to your most repeated self-narrative. If that narrative is small, your output will shrink to fit it. But if the narrative says you are born to dominate, your brain will hunt, filter, and bend the world to match that internal script. The danger? Belief doesn't discriminate. If you believe you're a failure, that belief rewires the same circuits, just in reverse. You'll find reasons to give up. You collect evidence for mediocrity. You'll call it realism when in fact it's just well-practiced surrender. Belief is either your greatest ally or your most cunning saboteur, and the line between the two is drawn by repetition. Whatever you repeat to yourself becomes the architecture your actions live inside. Belief influences recovery speed. High belief individuals bounce back with force, not because they avoid pain, but because they interpret it differently. They see temporary loss as part of the arc. They don't spiral, they adapt, because they trust that they are still on path even when they're bruised. The body heals faster when the mind refuses to collapse. The nervous system re-regulates when the internal script says, "This is part of the rise." You don't need perfection. You need belief resilient enough to carry you when everything else falls apart. Belief makes decisions faster. When you know the outcome belongs to you, you don't analyze yourself into paralysis. You move, you choose, you commit. Decision fatigue fades because the path isn't blurred by fear anymore. It's lit by conviction. Most people choke not because the choice is unclear, but because their self-image has not yet caught up to the responsibility of greatness. Belief pulls that future version forward and says, now, not someday, not after another course. Now. The truth is brutal. Most people do the right things with the wrong identity. They act out success while wearing the mask of doubt. But the world responds to belief more than mechanics. It feels your posture before it hears your pitch. You think the universe rewards effort, but effort only opens the door. It's belief that walks through it and claims the room. Identity is programmable, but the world never taught you that. It told you to find yourself, as if you were born with a static self waiting to be uncovered. Truth is, who you are is who you rehearse. Neurons don't care if you're pretending, they only care about repetition. Every action tells your brain, this is who I am now. And the more you act like the version you're trying to become, the more your nervous system reorganizes to make that version feel real, not metaphorically, biologically. You act confident long enough, confidence stops being a costume. It becomes your baseline. Imposter syndrome is not a signal to stop. It's a sign that your upgrade is still installing. Most interpret that friction as fraudulence. They say, I'm not ready. But readiness doesn't precede greatness. It follows exposure. You cannot evolve if you only move from places you've mastered. The brain hates novelty. It mistakes new environments for threat. So yes, at first, pretending feels dishonest, but keep pretending. And the act becomes automatic. The mask becomes your face. Because you weren't lying. You were just ahead of the wiring. Every hero you admire once felt like a fraud. Every expert stood trembling before the first crowd. They didn't feel like they belonged, but they stood anyway. That's the test. Can you move through the chemical noise long enough for the architecture of identity to catch up? Most cannot. They feel the friction and fold. They say, I don't feel like I deserve this. And they're right. Not yet. But deserve is a lagging metric. It catches up to those who act faster than they feel. The man who transforms does not wait for alignment. He manufactures it. He walks like it's already his, not to deceive others, but to inform his own biology. That's what belief does. It leads the nervous system into places the mind has not yet accepted as home. And over time, those places stop feeling foreign. The boardroom, the gym, the stage, the battlefield. They all become normal because the brain now sees them as familiar, not through magic, but through action. You think you're not qualified. That's irrelevant. Action is what qualifies you. You think you need more time, but time without intention only deepens the story of doubt. What you need is frequency, repetition. The daily assumption of the role you've never fully believed you could wear. That's how the mask fuses with the bone. That's how the actor becomes the architect. Every step forward is not fraud, it's frame reinforcement. Is the paradox. The moment you start acting like the future version of yourself, the world resists. It senses the shift. Your peers become uncomfortable. Your routines rebel. Your old identity begs for return. That's not the signal to retreat. That's confirmation. The discomfort you feel, that's your old operating system fighting for survival. And you have to let it die, not with violence, with consistency. Starve it of reinforcement, feed the new one with action. Most will never cross this threshold because they wait for the new identity to feel natural. But natural is the reward, not the requirement. The requirement is persistence through psychological turbulence. It's showing up when every voice in your head says, "This is not you." Because one day, if you refuse to fold, those voices quiet, and you wake up not acting like a winner. You are one. Not because the world said so, but because you refused to quit the performance until the curtain disappeared. It's not fake it till you make it, it's behave until you become. It's not pretending, it's installing. You install a role the same way you install software: repetition, exposure, feedback, correction, rinse, repeat. One day the installation completes and the identity boots without error. You don't stutter when asked what you do. You don't hesitate in rooms you used to fear. You move like someone who remembers the days they had to pretend and now owns every step. You cannot outgrow a story you still speak fluently. You cannot ascend into a self you keep sabotaging with self-doubt. So change the language. Speak from the role, not toward it. Don't say, "I'm trying to be disciplined." Say, "I am disciplined." And then stack evidence daily until the identity becomes undeniable. Reality bends to those who speak from belief, not aspiration. The brain does not run on infinite energy. It runs on allocation. You wake up each day with a limited reservoir of attention, willpower, and cognition. And like a budget, how you spend it determines the quality of everything that follows. Every doubt, every rumination, every mental tug-of-war. It all has a cost. And what people don't realize is that the expense of doubt isn't just emotional. It's neurological. It drains prefrontal cortex fuel. It burns glucose. It reduces your capacity to make decisions, take risks, or move with precision. Doubt doesn't just slow you, it starves you. Every time you let doubt take the mic, you pay a toll. You delay action. You cloud instinct. You split your power between two narratives, one where you win and one where you stall. And the more time you spend feeding both, the less real either one becomes. That is the cost of indecision. It dilutes identity. The brain cannot hold two conflicting versions of you forever. Eventually, one becomes dominant, and that dominant belief begins writing the behavioral script. The question is, which self are you feeding? Doubt acts like an open app in the background. It slows the entire operating system. It doesn't announce itself, it whispers. It says, "Check again. Wait a little longer. Maybe next time." And with every whisper, your momentum fragments, your confidence decays, your cognition, once sharp, starts misfiring. You forget simple steps. You hesitate before speaking. You lower your gaze when challenged, not because you're incapable, but because doubt has rented space in your mental headquarters. When belief dominates, bandwidth expands. You move with mental clarity. You make decisions in half the time. Your emotional baseline stabilizes. That's not magic, it's cognitive economy. You're no longer spending mental currency on survival mode questions like, "Can I or should I?" You're asking bigger questions, strategic ones, tactical ones. Because belief clears the fog that usually paralyzes performance. And when the fog lifts, the battlefield is yours to claim. Most people never track the cost of their doubts. They think indecision is free. They say, "I'm just waiting for the right moment." But while they wait, opportunities pass. Networks dissolve, timing expires. The brain burns fuel maintaining uncertainty, and eventually it runs out. That's when people burn out. not from work, from ambivalence. Doubt is the heaviest weight because it has no payoff. It offers no closure. It just sits there, collecting interest on your untapped potential. The man who moves with belief guards his bandwidth like sacred ground. He doesn't entertain every opinion. He doesn't ruminate on every outcome. He doesn't argue with every fear. Because he understands that attention is architecture, every thought he grants access to is a builder or a burglar. And doubt, no matter how well dressed, is always a thief. It doesn't steal your dream, it just keeps you too drained to pursue it. Belief is not just an attitude, it's a filtration system. It tells your brain what to ignore. It sets the priority level of your inner traffic. The higher your belief, the more automatic your rejection of noise becomes. You no longer consider quitting an option. You no longer entertain the idea that you're not qualified. Why? Because you simply can't afford to. You've got work to do. You've got cognitive capital to preserve, and that capital is too rare to waste on second-guessing what you've already earned. The real power of belief is not how it makes you feel, it's how it sharpens your bandwidth. When you believe it's already yours, doubt feels expensive, every detour becomes intolerable, every pause feels like theft, not because you're impatient, but because you've chosen a frequency too precise to accommodate noise. You've upgraded from multitasking to mission focus, and the man on a mission doesn't have time to explain himself to people who don't feel the weight of the crown he already wears. This is the final truth. You only get one tank of fuel each day, and that tank either goes to doubt or it goes to destiny. There is no third lane. There is no neutral. If you're not accelerating toward the version of you that's already won, you're slowly being digested by the version that never left the start line. And the difference between the two comes down to what you're willing to pay attention to. When your actions clash with your identity, the body protests, but not with noise, with discomfort. And that discomfort is sacred. It's not a sign to retreat. It's proof that belief is live. Cognitive dissonance is not a glitch in the matrix. It's the matrix rejecting the version of you that refuses to evolve. It's the moment the body, the mind, and the soul hold a secret meeting and say, we can live like this any. That tension, that friction, that pain in your chest when you lie to yourself, that is not failure. That is the tremor that comes before internal revolution. Most read the symptoms. They feel the discomfort and think, I'm not aligned. But alignment is not an achievement, it's a pursuit. A daily war between your habits and your higher self. The moment you believe something bigger is yours, you begin to suffer anything that contradicts it. Laziness becomes unbearable. Excuses start tasting sour. Conversations with low-energy people drain you faster than physical. That reaction is not elitism, it's resonance. Your new identity has zero tolerance for betrayal. When belief settles in your bones, your nervous system becomes a lie detector. You try to act small, but your spine rebels. You speak humbly, but your soul growls. You delay action, and suddenly you're anxious. Not because of outside pressure, but because your inner king is pacing the throne room, waiting for your behavior to match the crown you've already claimed. That's how identity works. Once upgraded, it refuses to run on outdated software. The beauty of belief is that it doesn't need outside confirmation. It brings its own judgment system. You feel shame not because others disapprove, but because your actions offend your future self. You scroll too long and you feel guilt, not from guilt's sake, but from wasting minutes that belong to a man who's already arrived and is waiting for you to catch up. That dissonance is divine. It's the bridge between who you were and who you've decided to become. And it hurts. because bridges are built with weight. You cannot escape this phase. You must suffer the friction. You must live in the limbo between your old identity and the new one, downloading. Most quit here. They say it's too uncomfortable. Of course it is. You are trying to run a legacy-level operating system on daily habits meant for survival, not sovereignty. Every misaligned act becomes a short circuit. Every small lie to yourself fries another wire. And yet, that pain, it means the system is working. You feel this urgency rise within you, a need to move faster, to cut the fat, to burn the bridge back to your average routines. That's not anxiety. That's alignment pressure. Your new belief system isn't asking you politely to change. It's demanding it. And that's the gift of believing it's already yours.